Good morning, class 10. Today again we will continue with our first history lesson. In our last class, we did the heading What did liberal nationalism stand for? And we saw how liberalism had its impact in the economic sphere and in the life of the people. Now, today we will start a new heading, that is a new conservatism after 1815. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by a spirit of conservatism. Now, let us see what is the meaning of conservatism. A political philosophy that stressed the importance of tradition, established institutions and customs, and preferred gradual development to quick change. That means those sections of people who believed in following the traditional values, the traditions, their customs which prevailed since ages, and they wanted a gradual transformation in the society. They did not want to see the society changing all of a sudden. They did not want a rapid change in the society, but they wanted a slow and steady change in the society. Therefore, they were of the opinion that the old traditions and customs should continue to exist. So, such kind of people were named as conservatives. Conservatives believed, now here you should underline, conservatives believed that established traditional institutions of state and society like the monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, property, and the family should be preserved. That means they wanted the system of governance to exist, they wanted the monarchy to prevail, the church should continue to carry on the practices which it had been doing, the social hierarchies, that means the social order in the society, the division between the high class and the low class, all these things should exist. Then property and family, the system of distributing property in the society and the systems which prevailed in the families should continue to exist. There should not be a rapid change in these areas. Most conservatives, however, did not propose a return to the society of pre-revolutionary days. So, although the conservatives wanted the old system of monarchy to exist, but they did not want to go back to the pre-revolutionary days. That means they did not want to go back to the ancient era. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by Napoleon that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like the monarchy. So, some people were of the opinion that modernization should be brought into practice. Modernization should be there in the lives of the people in the French society, so that the reforms which were introduced by Napoleon should continue to exist. Although monarchy will also prevail, but modernization should combine with the monarchical system. It could make state power more effective and strong. If modernization will be brought into the society, then it will make the state power more effective and strong. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, the abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. So, the conservatives believed that if modernization is brought into the army, in bureaucracy, in the economy, feudalism is abolished, serfdom is abolished, then this would give more power and more strength to the autocratic monarchies of Europe. In 1815, representatives of European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. Underline this important name, children. Metternich was a very important figure here in this chapter especially. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor. Chancellor means the Chancellor was a title which was given to the head of government in Germany. the head of the government in Germany was called a chancellor. So Duke Metternich was the Austrian chancellor. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna in 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. That means the delegates who met at the Congress of Vienna, they wanted to undo all those changes. That means they did not want to implement all those changes which were brought about during the Napoleonic Wars. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. Now children, in this paragraph, underline all these things, because these things are going to tell you what were the changes which were witnessed by the Treaty of Vienna. First thing was that most of the changes were not implemented. That means the Treaty of Vienna had the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. This is number one. Second is the Bourbon dynasty that had been removed, that had been deposed, was again restored to power. This is the second point. And France lost territories. This is the third point. France lost territories it had annexed under Napoleon. Next point, a series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. Thus, the Kingdom of Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north. This is going to be your next point. Thus, the Kingdom of Netherlands, which included in Belgium, was set up in the north, and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Next point, Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. But the German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. This will remain in the same point. Next point, in the east, Russia was given a part of Poland, while Prussia was given a portion of Saxony. The main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. This last line, the main intention, this is not any point, but it is a conclusion of this whole important paragraph. So these points which you have learned, which you have marked just now, you will have to learn by heart. The conservative regimes set up in 1815 were autocratic. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent. Dissent means here disagreement. And sought to curb the activities that questioned the legitimacy of autocratic governments. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, and songs, and reflected the ideas of liberty and freedom associated with the French Revolution. The memory of the French Revolution nonetheless continued to inspire liberals. One of the major issues taken up by the liberal nationalists was freedom of press. Here you must underline this line. One of the major issues taken up by the liberal nationalism was the freedom of press, so that the views of the common people could be expressed in the form of freedom of press. Now the next heading, the revolutionaries. In this heading, we are going to study about a very important figure named Giuseppe Mazzini. He was an Italian revolutionary. We will study about him in this paragraph, in this heading. Now, under this heading, children, I am starting from the second paragraph. One such individual was Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. Born in Genoa in 1807, he became a member of the secret society of the Carbonari. Underline this line. When I was doing this chapter earlier with you, then also I had told you that Mazzini and Carbonari, they are very much important. Mazzini he became a member of the secret society which was called the Carbonari. As a young man of 24, he was sent into exile in 1831 for attempting a revolution in Liguria. He subsequently founded two more underground societies, first Young Italy in Marseilles and then Young Europe in Bern. Young Italy is very, very important. Often a question, 1 mark question is asked in the board exam. Who founded Young Italy? The secret society named Young Italy. So the answer will be Mazzini. Underline this line. He subsequently founded two more underground societies. First was Young Italy in Marseilles and then Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy and German states. Mazzini believed, underline from here, Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be natural units of mankind. That means nations should be free. They should be natural units, natural places where mankind should exist, mankind should live. So Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. That means, in other words, he wanted Italy to be free. Italy should not be a patchwork or a combination of various states, but it should be free. So Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into a single unified republic. It had to be forged into a single unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. This unification alone could be the basis of Italian liberty. This was the viewpoint of Mazzini. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Underline this line, this is important. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives, because the conservatives were of the opinion that although they demanded changes, although they wanted modernization, but they also wanted the system of monarchy to exist. Whereas Mazzini wanted the new form of government on the basis of democratic republic. He was not in favor of monarchy. That is why the conservatives were frightened seeing the revolutionary views of Mazzini. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy of our social order. Now we come to the next heading, that is the age of revolutions, 1830 to 1848. Now in this, children, I am giving you a bit of summary of what is given in the first, second and third paragraph. I am not going to read these 3 paragraphs line by line, but I have summarized them so that you understand the gist of these 3 paragraphs, but for your sake you must later on read it once more. The age of revolutions, 1830 to 48. This was called the age of revolutions because the conservatives wanted to consolidate their power. Age of revolutions, as the heading itself suggests, a series of revolutions took place starting from 1830 till 1848. Why? Because the conservatives wanted to consolidate their power. They were seeing that with the growing revolutionary ideas of Mazzini, their power was threatened. They were under threat, and that is why they started a series of revolutions in order to consolidate their power. Many regions of Europe associated themselves with revolutions. Many regions of Europe joined hands together in these revolutions. The educated middle class mainly led these revolutions. The first among them was in France in July 1830. The first revolution started in July 1830, and the educated middle class people were mainly those people who led these revolutions. Another important heading here is given on page 13, that is the romantic imagination and national feeling. Now, I am not again going to read line by line, but first of all, I will summarize these 2 paragraphs which are given under this heading on page 13. Then underline one important line in the first paragraph of the heading, the romantic imagination and national feeling. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Underline this. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Now let me summarize what is given under this heading on page 13. It was not only three revolutions that nationalist feelings aroused among people. Culture also played a very important role in developing the idea of nationalism. So the summary of these two paragraphs is that nationalist feelings, nationalist sentiments were not only aroused by revolutions, a series of revolutions one after the other, but culture played a very important role in arousing nationalist feelings among people. And here see, one important line is given here in the last paragraph. Children, underline this because this has also come in the board exam in the previous year. Let us look at Romanticism, a cultural movement which sought to develop a particular form of nationalist feeling. So what is important here? Romanticism, a cultural movement. Once a question was asked, what is Romanticism? A cultural movement, or the choices were given. This was a multiple choice question and one of the choices was a cultural movement. Okay, so remember, Romanticism was a cultural movement. Do not confuse with literary movement. Romanticism was a cultural movement, and Romanticism here means love for nation, love for one's country. Romantic artists and poets generally criticized the glorification of reason and science and focused on emotions, intuition, and mystical feelings. Mystical feeling means spiritual feelings. Their effort was to create a sense of collective heritage, a common cultural past as the basis of the nation. Now I am coming to the next page, children. I am giving you a little bit of self-study work as your homework. The things which I feel that I can give you for homework, I need not read that again. I am giving you. That is page number 14 and page number 15. The first and the second paragraph of page number 15. This you will read yourself. This I am not reading line by line. Just I am giving you as your homework. Please do this reading part. Okay. Now I am coming to the next heading, that is hunger, hardship, and popular revolt. The 1830s were years of great economic hardship in Europe. The first half of the 19th century saw an enormous increase in population all over Europe. In most countries, there were more seekers of job than employment. So, what was the first hardship which the people of Europe were facing? Due to rapid increase in population, there was scarcity of jobs or employment. Population from rural areas migrated to the cities to live in overcrowded slums. Small producers in towns were often faced with stiff competition from imports of cheap machine-made goods from England, where industrialization was more advanced than on the continent. So there was competition in getting jobs. The people were moving to cities. The population from rural areas, from villages, was shifting to the cities. There was also competition from imports of cheap machine-made goods, and small producers were facing a lot of problem because they had to face this competition from the imports of cheap machine-made goods. Cheap machine-made goods were in demand. They were purchased by the people, whereas the small producers were not making so much of profit. This was essentially so in textile production, which was carried out mainly in homes or small workshops. In these regions, Europe, where the aristocracy still enjoyed power, peasants struggled under the burden of feudal dues and obligations. Now, the worst affected, as always, were the peasants because they were overburdened by the feudal dues. It was a kind of land revenue which was paid in India. There it was called as the feudal dues. They had to pay feudal dues to the feudal lords and other obligations, other taxes also. The rise of food prices or a year of bad harvest led to wide pauperism. Pauperism means state of being poor. People became poorer and poorer. The condition of the peasants became worse and worse if there was a bad harvest or if the prices of bread rose. Then the people suffered pauperism, or they became poorer and poorer, and this pauperism was seen in towns and all over the country. Now children, come to the next page. In the next page, again I am giving you this page for homework. Whatever I feel is not so necessary that I should read line by line, that I am giving you for self reading. Okay, now come to page number 17. 1848, the revolution of the liberals. I have already done this chapter in detail earlier. That is why I am giving some of the paragraphs, very little part for you to read yourself. Majority things I am reading and explaining again as you are seeing, so pay attention. 1848, the revolution of the liberals. Parallel to the revolts of the poor, unemployed and starving peasants and workers in many European countries in the year 1848, a revolution led by the educated middle class was underway. Events of February 1848 in France had brought about abdication of the monarch. That means the monarch was removed from the throne, and republic based on universal male suffrage had been proclaimed. So this was an important thing which was seen at this time in 1848. The monarch was abdicated from the throne, and republic based on universal male suffrage. That means universally all male members of the society were given the right to vote. This was proclaimed. In other parts of Europe where independent nation states did not yet exist, such as Germany, Italy, Poland, Austro-Hungarian Empire, men and women of the liberal middle classes combined their demands for constitutionalism with national unification. They took advantage of the growing popular unrest to push their demands for a creation of a nation state on parliamentary principles, a constitution, freedom of press and freedom of association. So these three things were mainly demanded by the people. They wanted a new constitution, they wanted freedom of press and freedom of association. That means they should form their groups, they should form their associations. Now again, in the next two paragraphs, children, please read this second paragraph. You will read yourself. Third paragraph I am reading. The issue of extending political rights to women was a controversial one within the liberal movement, in which large number of women had participated actively over the years. We have read till now that women were not given any share in the politics. They were not given the right to vote. They were not given an equal status in the society as men. So still now it was a controversial matter whether political rights should be given to women or not. Women had formed their own political associations, founded newspapers, and taken part in political meetings and demonstrations. So we are seeing that women were playing an important role in bringing about the revolution, in giving them the desirable place in the society, in giving them all those rights which the men have already been enjoying. Despite this, they were denied suffrage rights. Suffrage rights again means right to vote. The women were denied suffrage rights during the election of the assembly. When the Frankfurt Parliament convened in the Church of St. Paul, women were admitted only as observers to stand in the visitors' gallery. So till now women were not given the right to vote. Though conservative forces were able to suppress liberal movements in 1848, they could not restore the old order. Monarchs were beginning to realize that the cycles of revolution and repression could only be ended by granting concessions to the liberal nationalist revolutionaries. Hence, in the years of 1848, the autocratic monarchies of Central and Eastern Europe began to introduce the changes that had already taken place in Western Europe before 1815. Thus, serfdom and bonded labor were abolished both in Habsburg dominions and Russia. The Habsburg rulers granted more autonomy to the Hungarians in 1867. So in this paragraph, as such, you don't have to learn anything. Just remember that serfdom and bonded labor were abolished. Now we are going to come to a very important heading, that is the making of Germany and Italy, where we are going to read about unification of Italy and unification of Germany. Now, here again, children, when I did this topic with you last time, I have done the unification of Germany and Italy in detail. I had read line by line, and I had also given you the summary of these important things. I made you write some of the important things, if you remember, if you have been revising. Now today again, I am not going to read line by line every paragraph, but I will surely read the paragraphs which I feel are very, very important, and again I will give you the summary of unification of Italy and Germany, which will help you to understand the headings. The making of Germany and Italy. After 1848, nationalism in Europe moved away from its association with democracy and revolution. Nationalist sentiments were often mobilized by conservatives for promoting state power and achieving political domination over Europe. This can be observed in the process by which Germany and Italy came to be unified as nation states. As you have seen, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle class Germans. We have read this so many times till now, who in 1848 tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation. Underline this line. Underline from here. Nationalist feelings were widespread among the middle class Germans, who in 1848 tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation into a nation state governed by an elected parliament. This liberal initiative to nation building was repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military, supported by the landlords called Junkers of Prussia. From then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. All this is important because all this is describing about German unification. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, was the architect of this process, carried out with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. So you must remember who was Bismarck, the chief minister of Germany, Otto von Bismarck. He was the architect of the process of unification of Germany. 3 wars over 7 years with Austria, Denmark and France ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification in January 1871. The Prussian king William I was proclaimed German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. So this whole paragraph is about German unification. This you have to learn as it is, starting from second line of the second paragraph. The nationalist feelings were widespread, and the whole thing describes about German unification. Now, before I move to Italian unification, let me again give you some important points, the key points of unification of Germany, which will help you to remember the process. First point is, Bismarck, with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy, took the leadership for national unification. Second point, 3 wars over 7 years ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification of Germany. Third point, Caesar William I of Prussia was made the head of the new German Empire. Caesar William I of Prussia. This is also an important question as far as the 1 mark questions are concerned. This is also often asked. Who was the emperor of? Who was made the German emperor after German unification? So your answer will be Caesar William I of Prussia. Okay, so this is about unification of Germany. Now the next 2 paragraphs I am giving you for just one reading on your own. This I am not reading just now. Come to Italy unified. Italy unified. This I am reading. Like Germany, Italy too had a long history of political fragmentation. That means Italy was also divided into different fragments, different states. Italians were scattered over several dynastic states as well as multinational Habsburg Empire. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, of which only one, Sardinia Piedmont, was ruled by Italian princely house. All this, children, I had explained last time in detail, I remember. The north was under Austrian Habsburg, the center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern regions were under the domination of Bourbon kings of Spain. Even the Italian language had not acquired one common form and still had many regional and local variations. During the 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini had sought to put together a coherent program for the unitary Italian Republic. He had also formed a secret society called Young Italy, this I have told you earlier, for the dissemination of his goals. The failure of revolutionary uprisings both in 1831 and 48 meant that the mantle now fell on Sardinia Piedmont under the ruler King Victor Emmanuel II to unify the Italian states through war. In the eyes of the ruling elites of this region, a unified Italy offered them the possibility of economic development and political dominance. This is the background of Italian unification. Chief Minister Cavour, who led the movement to unify the regions of Italy, was neither a revolutionary nor a democrat. Now pay attention. Like many other wealthy and educated members of the Italian elite, he spoke French much better than he did Italian. Through the tactful diplomatic alliance with France engineered by Cavour, Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating the Austrian forces in 1859. Apart from regular troops, a large number of armed volunteers under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi, he was another important figure in Italian unification. Count Cavour and Garibaldi, both were very important in Italian unification, joined the fray, that is fight, in 1860. They marched into South Italy and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies and succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers.